everybody. How are you? It is so good to see you. You know how much I love spending time with y'all. It's just, I don't know, one of my favorite things. And I get to introduce you to a fabulous woman who is also going to be doing amazing things for you. But for those of you who don't know me, let me just give you a quick update as to why you're even in the Fabulous 50s. So I'm Marie Sennett, and I work with folks so that they can create a holistic dream retirement so you can do all the things you wanted to do and think about things besides money. Where you're going to live, what do you want to do, how you're going to replace your identity when you're not working anymore, how you're going to have a life of purpose. And then we put together a yoga and meditation program to help you get there as we dive in deeper as to what that dream retirement looks like. And then when you're ready to retire, boom, there it is. So that's me. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about Spring Courtright. And Spring Courtright is an amazing person. I am so happy that she has agreed to come talk with us because she's got a lot of great stuff. So Spring is on a mission to help the world be healthier and happier and a peaceful place. One home and one life at a time. She works with people individually. Since 2014, she's been an organizer, and she also has been an outdoor guide for 19 years, and she's a mere 47 years old. For this group, that's really young. And she does virtual and in-home coaching for organizing and helping people to be able to clear space so that they can have the ability to thrive and grow and change and do new things. And yes, she did train with Marie Kondo, but she is probably a lot better than Marie Kondo. And and I'll let Spring take it from here if there's something that I missed, but we are very lucky to have here, and I'm glad that she is here with us. Spring, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Marie. I'm so happy to be here. I love the work that you do. I think it's so incredibly important. And I work with a lot of women who are either retired or getting ready to retire, and getting organized and decluttering before retiring is really a wonderful gift for yourself. So the work that you're doing to help people plan for that is just, I'm so grateful you're here doing that for people. So
thank you
so much for having me here.
Sure. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you got started, because I think that's an interesting story in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. So as you mentioned, I've been an outdoor guide for many, many years. I'm still a kayak guide. I take women on trips all around. And that's a tough industry to be in, especially as a woman. And I had met my to-be husband, and one day he said, "I don't think this is sustainable." And I said, "I think you're right," because I also have a background in environmental education. So the whole idea of sustainability, like out there, was something, but in my own life, realizing this isn't sustainable. And so I just completely stepped away from that. And it was a glimmer of the idea of retirement, of like, wow, I'm letting go of this whole identity. This 15, 20 year career I'm setting behind me, and I didn't know what I was going to do moving forward. And I actually started a business called Spring Cleaning, because why not? And I started working on a book and kind of reflecting on my life. And from that, I started just helping people with their closets and helping people with little projects here and there. And I thought it was just a side hobby. I didn't actually know that you could be a professional organizer. It was not on my radar. I grew up thinking I was a messy person. My parents were incredibly organized. My aunt on one side and my mom were both librarians. So it's like, and then my dad was over the top organized. Like, here's how you fold your underwear. His underwear, not my underwear. They didn't teach me how to organize my things. They just taught me how to keep things looking pretty, like on the surface. And then, managing like the laundry and things like that, I learned when I was a very young girl, learning how to do that. And so by the time I got into my 20s, when I got out on my own and I was in my 20s, I actually was really opposed to all the organizing and cleaning. I didn't like it. So when I came around in my 30s, realizing, wow, I really like helping people clear space. And I have this knack of helping people organize. I surprised myself. And I started helping other people with their spaces. But I had this dirty little secret that my own house was a mess. I moved in with my husband, and it was a 4-bedroom house, and it was full of stuff, like completely packed with stuff. I had a hard time bringing myself in here, and I did what a lot of my clients do, where I looked around and I was completely overwhelmed. Like, I'd look at a room and go, I don't know where to start. There's too much. Everything is a mess. I have no idea where to begin. And so I, as I'm helping other people in their spaces, I'm coming home and feeling overwhelmed. And I brought up a friend into my space to help me get the vision and, do the work. And then I learned about Marie Kondo. Everybody was asking me, have you read The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up? And I put it off for a long time. I was like, I don't know. Do I really need to? But so many people asked me about it that I read it, and I looked up at a counter that I thought I had cleared and organized. And I was like, I'm starting over. And I did my entire house, and I ended up flying to New York and training with Marie Kondo because I loved her concepts so much. And it worked so well in my own home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it completely transformed my home, and it brought me to a point where I felt like my home supported me.
Wow.
My dreams and my goals. And I got it to the point where over years, this is a journey. Organizing is definitely, I'm still a guide. I realized I'm still an adventure guide because this is an adventure. But over the course of those years, I made my home, I worked on my insides. I got coaching. So I found more peace and joy in my own mind and body. And then that was also reflected outside of me from my home.
Wow.
And to experience that is one of the most pleasurable things I've ever experienced in my life, and continue to experience every day, looking around, taking time to envision each room. What do I want to do in there? I created the room I'm in is my art space, meditation space, workout space, office, guest room. And you know what? I love it because I don't have a bunch of extraneous stuff, so I can fit all of that in here. So anyway, all that being said, I did train with Marie Kondo, but then after I went through the whole process of getting certified as a KonMari consultant, I realized it doesn't work for everyone. And there were a lot of restrictions with working within just that framework. And by now I've read so many organizing books and studied so many techniques. And I have this long, history, my entire life of learning organizing skills and working on the mindset piece that I think it's much more dynamic than just the Marie Kondo, her method. So that's the long journey.
It's a long journey, but it's an important journey. And I love the fact that, you did it at home too. Now I'm looking around here going, oh, geez.
Right.
But, and we have it, and we moved from this really big house into this tiny house.
Oh yeah.
And it's not our last stop. So we still have all the furniture because we don't know if we're going to need it in the next place.
Right.
And we kind of put up decor, not thinking what's going to suit our needs in this room. It's kind of well, where do we hang this thing? So I'm now inspired, although my husband's not going to be very happy because I'm going to be like, can we move this? Can we move that? But
oh. Well, with that, my husband was not excited either. I would love to have a little interview with him and get his, have him share his take, because, for a partner, when somebody's like, I'm going to organize my house, I'm going to, you get inspired to change things around. It's really a life review.
Yeah.
You are reviewing all the decisions up to this point. Each item represents a decision, a dream, a hope, a memory, a goal, something dashed, a dashed dream. and you're reviewing each of those, and it can be an emotional process, and there's a lot of change happening. And so for partners and also children and pets
Oh yeah, yeah.
can be jarring. But the more you focus, I always recommend just focusing on our own things. And the more joy we find personally, the more our partners and, families are inspired. It becomes very inspiring. Like my husband every once in a while pulls out all of his socks and throws them on the bed and starts organizing. And I'm like, that is so sexy. No idea how sexy. Or he like spontaneously organizes the garage now. Like,
There you go.
right? Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
So
So as we're thinking about moving to retirement, I'm hearing you've got some secrets that you can share with us to help us get
mhm.
ready in terms of our space.
Yes. Yeah. So I have put together like my top 10, and actually as we were talking just before this, I added an 11th um top things to think about, do, plan for, as far as organizing goes, organizing and decluttering. And I want to just, before I start, I want to just point out like decluttering is clearing out the things that we don't want, need, use, love, right? So, and that can be in our heads, it can be in our bodies, it can be in our lives, it can be in our calendars, it can be digitally in our homes. So going through and taking out the things that we don't want is decluttering. So moving the clutter out of our spaces, and then organizing, we organize what we keep, what we do use, need, love, want. So that's where the like life review comes in. Is the decluttering is more of the life review. Organizing is where you're like, okay, these are the things that I want and need moving forward in my life. How am I going to organize those so it's easy to put away and easy to get it? So that's when I say organizing and decluttering, they really are
Yeah.
two separate things, even though they're very connected. So
I appreciate that distinction because I mesh them together, and you're right; they're two very separate ideas.
yeah, you don't need to organize your clutter. That's like I just don't do it, right? So okay, so I'll see what the top 10 are, and then I'll break them down, and we can just bring things up as you think of them as we're going. So first is envisioning the life that you want, which it sounds like you also do this, starting with the vision, finding your why, like what do you want and why do you want that in your retirement? The second is reverse engineering. So I'll break these out. I'll just read through, which ones they are, and then I'll break them out. So the next one is reverse engineering, like from that why, moving backward, how to get there. Organizing your finances. If you just do a Google search on how do I organize for retirement, it's 99.9% all about your finances.
Yep.
There's so much more, right? Like
Yep.
that's why you do what you do, because there's so much more to plan for. It's not just about finances, but there are some pieces that I'll go through to focus on. And then organizing papers. I don't always say like start there, but really if you're planning for retirement, there is so much financial planning to do that the sooner you can get your papers like detail organized, the better, the easier it is to do the planning. Organizing the kitchen and pantry and having like your food plan. Because if you want to be healthy, you want to like be active and all of that, you need to have your kitchen and your pantry supporting that lifestyle moving forward. Organizing the closet, which I'll get into a little bit more. Organizing hobby spaces. So a lot of times, you have all these hobbies you've been putting off because you've been working. So making sure that you have the things that you need and want. Can you find the things that you need and want? A lot of times I go into people's homes and their hobby spaces are just, they're the rooms that are completely jam-packed full of stuff.
Oh, can't use it.
Can't use it, right. Having guest spaces available. So as we have more time, we often bring in more guests, to come stay with us. Travel gear, having all the travel equipment all together, having that organized and ready to go on those adventures. Having that organized really makes a big difference as far as like stress before you go travel. Organizing your thoughts and getting support with that is huge, because if we are feeling fear, like we don't have enough, like we aren't going to have enough time, we don't have enough money, I don't know how to do this, I'm not an organized person, like all those thoughts are going to keep us from enjoying our future looking forward, you know.
Yeah.
And then the one that came up right before we started was organizing your time. So those are the top 11 things that I would say, and that's a lot of information, I know.
But you know, each one of them is important. It's not like you just threw stuff in there to make it, you know, count to get to 10.
No,
You
no.
know?
And I, you know, like going in this order doesn't have to be in this order, but starting with the vision is so important, as you know,
Yeah.
working with your clients, like having a clear vision, it can, and that can be difficult if, if people are living in a lot of clutter, it can be difficult to envision a different life. And one of
Yeah,
the
there's no
things,
room to envision it. I hadn't thought of
yeah,
that. That's
yeah.
like so important.
Yes. And so if you're like, oh, I want to have my friends and family and kids over, but or I want to do hobbies, or I want to be able to do more yoga and have an exercise studio at home, but your spaces for those things are completely full, it's really hard to feel into that vision, because it's not just having a vision, like to have a goal is nice, but if you don't really feel into that, I've read this about vision boards. You can have the vision board and like it looks all pretty, but if you're not actually like imagining yourself there and feeling what it's like to be there, it's it's not as much of a magnet like pulling you there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like I said, getting organized is a journey, it's an adventure. And retirement is a journey and an adventure. So starting the organizing, decluttering adventure early um, allows you to have a more fun adventure when you're retired. So
I like that. I like that. I like the prep thing. I mean, I think that's important because, you know, when you're working, you're not going to have all that fun time. And then why waste it when you retire? Because like you've worked so hard to get to that.
yes, exactly. I've been working with a woman for probably since COVID, who I worked with her as she was getting ready to retire. And now she's been retired for a year. So she was like getting ready in her living spaces, getting
Mhm.
that organized and feeling good. And now that she's retired, she has this big project of getting her basement decluttered and organized so that she can sell her place and downsize. So she was like, she got all the little stuff out of the way so she could, when she retired, she could just enjoy her kitchen, her dining area, her living room, and then have the mental clarity to start moving toward her actual like fun part of retiring, so she's been able to go to France and do all these, so planning, like we've organized her travel gear and all of that. So clearing the space so you can have that clear vision is, and also have the mental clarity to do the planning.
Yeah.
That's huge. There are studies that show when you live in clutter, your stress levels are much higher, your cortisol levels, you're not going to sleep as well. You just don't have the mental, physical clarity and health, to be able to do the work. So the next one is reverse engineering. And I just love the idea of reverse engineering in anything in our life. But, I think it's so fun to like, you have the vision and then planning out, what do I need to get there?
Yeah.
And taking these steps again, will just help you kind of relax and be able to enjoy the journey instead of it being stressful. So then the third thing, organizing the finances. I definitely recommend like meeting with a financial advisor, like early on, just like figure out what you need to figure out.
Yeah.
And then part of organizing finances is like streamline everything. Like consolidate accounts, merge accounts as much as you can, like simplify,
Yeah.
simplify, simplify, simplify. You know, consolidate, let go of credit cards you're no longer using. So getting all of the accounts streamlined, and then automating bills and payments. That's another part of the simplifying. Um, and determining your net worth. So that's a big part. And if your papers are all over the place, right? And if you
Yep.
don't know like how much am I paying every month, every year? What are what are my hidden things that only come up once a year, like my tabs, and what are my actual monthly, yearly costs, and then what are my assets? Like a financial planner will help with that. But if you don't have your papers organized, and like organized in a pretty streamlined way, like folders with, this is my insurance, car insurance, health insurance. If it's not broken down like that, it's a lot harder to do this planning.
Yeah, yeah, and I know one way I motivated myself to put things in those folders, and I'm sure you've got thousands of different ways, but I love color, so it's like the insurance
Yes.
papers go in the red folder, you know,
Yes.
and the
Right.
utilities go in the purple folder.
Yes. And for some people that works amazing. I've seen it go both ways. I've seen people like get all the colored folders and then they don't stick with that system.
Mhm.
And then it's just like a rainbow mess instead of just one mess. There's like multiple different colored messes. So figuring out like what is your organizing style, and that's where having a coach or support to like, not there's this something I see a lot is like, well, this is what I want to do. I want to be, organized by color. And for some people that's amazing. And for some people that isn't actually going to work. And if we try a system and it doesn't work and then we give up,
Yeah,
then we're often more of a mess than when we started.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, and I'm
yeah,
thinking, like, as we're talking about, I'm thinking, like, that's a two-step thing. It's like I have to remember red is, for the car insurance, and if I
yes.
just have a folder that says car insurance, it doesn't matter what color it is. So, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I just have the same color and they're alphabetized.
I like that. Yeah, okay.
I'm a big fan of just going and buying like, 100 new manila folders, getting a pencil and just going through all the papers and putting them in a new manila folder in pencil. And then at the end, I have a whole system of, going through papers. I could talk for days about that.
Yes.
So at the end of like the paper piece though, is having a spreadsheet, just starting either an Excel or a Google Doc where you start, if you're not already tracking finances, like where you're putting monthly bills and things like that, and just starting to really get a sense of what is my financial life. And as the bills come in and you start organizing those things, like getting it on that document so that when you meet with a financial planner, you can have it all together.
Yeah, and
So
one thing that I noticed too when I was trying to figure out my budget for retirement, um, since I've had a financial planner forever, I like, there's like all these things that I get, like $2.99 a month for my iCloud fee, and
yes.
and all these things that are automatically charged to my credit card. And I was like, I need to sit down with my credit card statement and see what all these monthly charges are, and then like Amazon
Yes.
Prime shows up once a year. Don't I know when that is? No, I do now because I looked.
Yes. And I just did this not too long. I think I started about 2 years ago where I created, and I have a Mac, so I use Pages, and I just created this document, and I went through, and looked at all the little subscriptions. I mean, everything is subscription now, right?
Yeah,
Annual subscriptions, some of them are monthly, and they're like, some are through PayPal, I was paying through PayPal, some I was paying through different credit
yeah,
cards,
yeah.
putting them all together and seeing how much exactly am I spending every month. That in itself is an incredibly eye-opening and empowering. It's very empowering.
Yeah.
And I also created a spreadsheet for the money that I have around. So I had different banks and I consolidated it all down. And then I had this one spreadsheet. And every week I go through, how much money do I have? Where is it? Are there any weird things that are getting, like, do I
Yeah.
need to look into this payment? I cannot even tell you how incredibly empowering that is. I used to it was basically like my husband had all the financial power because I didn't know anything.
Mhm.
And once we dive in, it just feels really good. So
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too in terms of, like, usually it's one spouse, and if you're not the spouse, you really need to know. So I think that's another subcategory of that category. Good point.
absolutely. And um, having your papers and finances organized where and maybe one other person in your family knows, like if something happened to your spouse, would you be able to make payments?
Yeah.
Do you know what all the passwords are? Do you even know what their finances look like so you can, could manage those for a while? That's something that my husband and I are, really starting to work on. And it's a lot. I've heard of people being locked out of their spouses or their parents' accounts and they couldn't get in. They couldn't get into the safety deposit box that they have.
Yeah.
Um, my own dad, we had, he fell and hit his head
Hmm.
and he never came back. And we ended up pulling, like bringing him home, taking him off all the machines. Um, and we had met with a lawyer. I was in my 20s, so I wasn't organized and I didn't know about all this,
Right.
but he had thought ahead and met with my mom and I and a lawyer and had a document that he wrote up of that he didn't want to be connected to machines and kind of, what his end of life thoughts were. When this happened, we couldn't find that piece of paper.
Oh,
Do you know how much more difficult that made it
no! Ooh.
in talking with family? Because not everybody is going to be on the same page about what machines you keep them connected to for how long.
Yeah.
Very, very, like, this is like life and death stuff, like I'm all lighthearted about it. I'm an organizer, but this is
Yeah, it's
really
serious.
important stuff.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Yeah. Do you know, is your will all updated? Do you have your advanced directives? And that's a whole nother realm, but it is incredibly important. And that's why organizing papers is way up on the top of this list.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah. So the next thing, kitchen, pantry, and food. Um, like thinking about the vision of I want to travel, I want to have fun, I want to live a long time, and I don't want to, be unhealthy. Getting into the kitchen and the pantry and making it as organized and fun of a place to be in as possible is so important because it's incredible how much time you end up spending in your kitchen once you don't have a job. And if health is one of your top priorities, like my husband and I eat a lot of food from the garden, we eat whole food. We spend so much time in the kitchen. And when I first moved in and it was a disaster, he barely cooked. I did not enjoy cooking. We couldn't put things away. We had like 24 spatulas, over the top. And now it's our favorite place to be. And he has cooking has become a major hobby. And I really believe in organizing your kitchen for your health goals.
Yeah.
And it can be really fun. And it's another space that can be really overwhelming. You're like, I got to organize the kitchen and it's huge. Just start with one category. Start with the spatulas. Pull all the utensils out, get
Right.
all the spatulas, and just pick your favorites. And once you've gone through the entire kitchen like that with the categories, then create the organizing systems where it's easy to put stuff away and easy to find it and keep refining it and keep refining it. And we ended up being able to remodel our kitchen because it was easier to pull everything out. And we continued to refine the organizing and it just feels so good.
Indeed. 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 Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, the closet. So I'm working with a woman right now who has been retired for about 20 years. And actually last week and next week, I'm going into her space with her because she has not let go of the clothes from her professional life. And for 20 years, she's been gathering new clothes. And so she's like stuffed to the gills, can barely get things in and out of the closet. So I definitely recommend starting early, like, who do I want to be? That envisioning piece. What am I wearing?
Yeah.
Am I going to be that poem, like, when I grow older, I shall wear purple? What colors do you want to wear? What fabrics are you going to like? Do you feel yourself like blossoming into a different person as far as, what you look like and what you wear? And because once you do retire, there's that, or, a career change, there's that, who am I?
Right, right. Like for me, going from lawyer to yoga teacher.
Yes.
It's like going from stiff suits to comfy yogi pants.
Yes, right. And there's an emotional component to that,
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
more you can like plan ahead mentally for that, the easier it's going to be to actually let go of those things. There's a
yeah,
long like lineup to the actual physical process of being able to take something out of the house.
yeah.
It's a lot easier if you've thought about your identity.
The other thing that's coming to mind too with professional clothes, there are so many organizations that are
Oh,
set up for folks who are like, returning home from incarceration, or women
yeah.
who've had to evacuate their homes due to domestic violence, that they need the professional clothing. And it's
Mm.
men and women. And so what might be a motivator for some folks is to take all those wonderful professional clothes that they're not going to be using and give them to someone else so that they can go to an interview and actually get the job. They can keep the job because they're looking good, and
Yes.
that's I mean, when my mother-in-law passed, we did that. We took all of her clothes to a
Mm.
specific place because she dressed fabulously, so
Yeah.
that everybody could have really nice clothes for job interviews and to keep the jobs. And I didn't get a chance to talk to her about it, but I didn't need to because she was already working with this organization and it was just was
Mm.
the next thing. And when we dropped off, and it was like 6 huge garbage bags of clothes, like the woman who was the volunteer coordinator just cried. She's like, "Oh my God, this is so
Oh.
amazing." So it really
Oh.
can touch a lot of people.
Yes, it can. And that actually brings up a really important point. I'm so glad you said that. Having in mind where you're going to donate before diving into a project. So, like before you go into your kitchen, is there a food bank that you would like to donate food to that you don't, you know that you're not actually going to use? And some food banks actually takes things that are expired. So, checking in about that. And with your clothes, well, with your clothes and with anything, having a clear idea of where am I going to take this? Is it easy? One, there's two different ways to go. Like if you're going to procrastinate and not actually do the work because it's multiple steps to get it to where you want, then you might want to just keep it super simple and even like schedule it an organization to come get things. So like
Yeah.
there are, like Habitat for Humanity, St. Vincent de Paul. I actually have a cheat sheet that people can get from me that has, some of the organizations that will come and pick things up from you. Um, but it can help with the decision-making process if like the woman I was talking about, that I'm working with right now, there's an organization on the island she's on, where it's all volunteer run, and all the money goes back into the community, and it's like $300,000 or something that goes back into this island community every year.
Nice.
And so she's so like every time she lets something go, she knows it's going to this good cause and it helps her let go. So having that in mind beforehand was super helpful.
Yeah, yeah, and believe it or not, like a lot of animal shelters will take used yoga mats because it's good for the dogs and cats to run on.
Oh, yes. That's a really good point.
Not
And
that I expect a lot of people have used yoga mats like I do, but yeah.
right? Oh, I have so many. That's a really good thing to know. I'm gonna note that. Let's see. So the next thing, the hobby spaces. So, like we talked about, like when you're busy, you're working, oftentimes those are the spaces and the things that kind of sink to the bottom and get those rooms and spaces get stuffed full of clutter. So thinking about realistically, what do I want to do with hobbies and how much space do I need for that? And oftentimes, I hear people say, I'm going to have so much time when I retire. I'm going to be able to do all these things. And guess what? Time fills up really fast. It's amazing. You know, like one woman, the woman I said I've been working with for like, you know, like 3 years, she said, I'm going to be watercolor painting. Well, actually, that time that she would probably be watercolor painting, she's actually spending decluttering her basement
There
because
you
she
go.
doesn't have space to watercolor paint yet. You know, she has to clear out the stuff in order to do that. So that's why starting early with creating space for the hobbies is such a big deal.
Yeah, and one thing I don't know why my brain's going here, but I had a great hobby room in one of the houses that we're in that I don't have room for it now, and it was for scrapbooking. And you know,
Yes.
you can get all those really cool like scrapbooking shelves and stuff that are like
Yeah.
$49 a piece. Or what I did was I went and you know those cubes that you use in college that are like squares and they hook together and they're made of metal and they're like
Oh
just
yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like just the separate pieces. I got those and a bunch of just bell ties, and so I could take one of those cubes and make smaller shelves to put my paper on. And
Mm-hmm.
and I've actually done that in closets here because I don't feel like spending money on the expensive closet organizers. And it's
Yes.
amazing how like you can just use those things at a much cheaper price and make things up.
Oh yeah. I love coming up with hacks that are not the crazy expensive, you know, ways to go. And that actually brings up another good point of just a lot of people think, well, okay, I'm going to get organized. I'm going to go buy a bunch of organizers. I can't even tell you how many organizing containers and systems that I found that are just adding to the clutter. You
Mm,
know, like somebody might be like, oh, yeah, I like that idea of some metal shelves. I'm going to go buy some. Go through the things first and then get the system that works for what you're keeping. So, like, you know, talking about hobbies, I wouldn't say go get a bunch of containers to organize your hobby things and then go through your hobby things. Go through everything first, donate, sell, whatever you're going to let go of, like, get the things out of the space and then look around and be like, okay, like if you're sewing, you know, how many pieces of fabric do I have? What size are they? How much space do I need for more fabric coming into my life? So how much room do I want to leave? And then get the organizers for what you're keeping.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Hmm. I've probably touched 10,000 organizers and I've donated a lot of them because you can only handle so many.
True. It's crazy.
Let's see the next one. So guest spaces. Just having, if you have more time, if one of your goals in that vision is to have friends and family and grandkids and kids come stay, a lot of times the guest room is one of those catch-all rooms. I call it the room, like capital T, capital R, where it's like, well, this doesn't really get used, so I'll just put this here for now. And then, you know, clutter magnets, it becomes a clutter magnet.
Yes, I have family and friends that when I come stay the guest room, the first thing I get is, "Oh, okay, you're coming that weekend? All right."
Right? Yes. Yes. And if we plan ahead for it and start clearing that space out before that happens and come up with systems to put those things we don't know what to do with, oh, it's a gift for yourself, but also for the people coming to stay with you.
Yeah. Oh, we got somebody on Facebook. Someone said don't do it either, which you know, there's many things we're all owning up to, and I appreciate you sharing that. And then someone asked, "Have you ever started a project and it's still a mess 27 hours later?"
That's actually a big reason why people hire me, because you go in and it's messy. Getting organized is so messy. You have to be willing to make a mess before you can clean it up.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people get stuck. They're like, okay, I'm going to pull everything out. And then there's all this stuff and you get overwhelmed. And so, absolutely, I deal with that a lot. And I'm the person who like talks you off the ledge, like, no, don't just stuff it all back in the pantry. Like, keep going. We can do this. We'll come up with a system. And I help, like, you know, step by step by step. And the
Yep.
biggest thing is just looking at it and picking one thing. When we get overwhelmed, what's one thing I can do right now? And, what's one thing I can remove from here? What's one category I can work with?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good question.
And then someone else is saying, do we get a list of tools at the end of this?
Yeah, I was thinking I will I'll send some different, put some different resources in your Facebook group.
Cool. That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful. But there's
Yeah.
more. We haven't gotten through the list, guys. So
Right.
keep asking questions. What's the
Okay.
next thing we got to look at, Spring?
This one's fun. Travel gear.
Oh, yes.
Yes, right. So I definitely recommend going through get all the travel related stuff together. Gather all the suitcases from a lot of times people have them in different areas in the house and different people have different sizes. And like, I'll be like, oh, I didn't know that you actually had 4 suitcases and 2 duffel bags. Like, let's put it all together. So there's the travel equipment, like the suitcases and the neck pillows and, travel related bigger things. And then there's the smaller things of like, when you have 30 different shampoos that you've collected from, you're like, but I travel, so I want to have travel shampoo. But is it causing it to be stressful when you're packing for a trip?
Yeah.
So I love traveling. I keep a travel bag ready, and then I have a Ziploc that's like the overflow if I need extra this and I need extra that. But being realistic about how much do I actually need for my travel equipment, and then making it easy to grab and go. And I have a cheat sheet for, things that I recommend, like for the grab bag for getting on the airplane.
Yeah.
Making your trips as comfortable as possible once you're actually traveling, but to have just a travel supply area that when you're planning for, because so many people find so much stress in getting ready for the trip. And then afterwards, they're like, I don't know what to do with it. So they just like shove it all in the garage.
Where it stays.
Making it worse for next time.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Let's see. So then the 10th one was organizing your thoughts and your mind. So that's that piece of, if in our heads we're thinking, I'm not an organized person. I don't know what my finances are and I have no idea how to get there, and it completely freaks us out. Or I don't know when I'm going to be able to retire because I don't know what my life costs are. Like, there's so much mental stuff that builds up that can make us just sit on the couch and eat Doritos and binge watch Netflix because our thoughts are like, they're like spinning and we don't know where to stop. And we don't know which thing to focus on. So getting support with the mental piece is, I think, incredibly important.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, when I'm thinking about that, like I'm also thinking that as I'm going through it, I'm going to have thoughts as well, like as I'm going through my stuff, like we were talking earlier about getting rid of clutter. And one of the things that I have that's clutter is the wedding cake topper from my parents' wedding.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, they got divorced when I was like 11. And so it's like, do I really need this? Can I take a picture and have the memory? Do I need the wedding topper that's like broken at the bottom because it's so old?
Right. Yes. And having support with that thought process, because like one of the questions was, do you ever get 27 hours in and you're like, you have stuff everywhere? A lot of times we get stuck on those emotional things.
Yeah.
Like, I worked with one woman early on who she had a room, she wanted to work from home. She was like, working towards retirement, and she wanted to cut back on her hours and costs and like work from home. And her entire office was like it wasn't that high. It was probably a pile up to about my chest. And there was a desk buried in there, and there were all kinds of office supplies buried in there. And there was a huge, beautiful bookcase, but you couldn't even open the door all the way. And you know what I found in the corner?
What?
buried deep in the corner was this thick binder with her divorce papers.
Wow.
And it was a messy divorce. There were, really difficult things with the kids. And I saw it as basically like a cancer. It was like this thing in the corner, an emotional piece that she had never fully worked through. And the clutter, like, it was like piling on top of it, like a cancer cell, like things are attracted to it. And once we got to that corner and worked through emotionally, thankfully she was a therapist and she had connections to other therapists. So getting, help from a therapist and an organizer who can like walk you through the steps of actually the stuff, we got her room to a point where it looked and felt beautiful, but we had to deal with that piece. I've had people, I've like had people burn wedding pictures when they're with me, like they got to let go of the emotional stuff before they can do
Indeed. Indeed. I got a question here. Do you recommend decluttering like an hour a day if you can? I'm guessing that's now while you're working.
Yeah, while you're working, yes. I actually have a blog. My website is TidyWild.com. And on my blog, there's one post about a 10-minute daily declutter challenge. And Marie Kondo says, tidy for a few minutes a day and you'll be tidying forever. So there's two different things. There's like, do the daily decluttering, like deal with your mail as it comes in. Have a donation station, whereas things come in that you don't want, or you come across things you don't want, you can just put it right in there. Deal with the things as they're coming in. That's where the 10 minutes a day is. Like, put your toothbrush away, keep an area clear in your bathroom, things like that. If you spend an hour a day, you can get a lot done in a year. But one thing I recommend also is looking ahead. So the number 11 is the time. So organize your time to work on decluttering and organizing. So just like a date with a friend or a doctor, in a doctor's appointment, look at the calendar. If this is a priority, like I want to get organized before I retire or, right after I retire, look at your calendar, schedule small chunks of time, up to an hour, but also schedule bigger chunks of time, because the more time you spend on it, the more you can get in the flow. I find my sessions, like in-home sessions, are between 4 and 6 hours. And at first there's it's kind of clunky because, they're like kind of nervous and this is going to feel like a lot of work. And then within a half an hour, we're in this flow. Yeah. It's like any kind of exercise. And, then taking a break and coming back to it. So yes, an hour a day would be amazing. And also see if you can allow some time where you can keep going past that hour.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, from what we're talking about, like in that hour, give yourself time to like look at something and be like, oh, what a great memory. Like not like you got an hour to get rid of stuff, like experience it.
Right. Yes. Yeah. The woman that I'm talking with about, getting her basement clear, part of what we do is she comes across something and she's just processing it. She came across her dollhouse, all the little, like a couple hundred toys where she took them upstairs and she spent a couple hours, like just going through them, organizing them, finding ones that were broken. And it was like, she said because she took that time, now she was ready to let go. Whereas at first she was like, I can't let go of these. I love these. And by the end of that, she was like, I just needed to spend that time with it. I do recommend, if you have a whole house full of clutter, I recommend doing sentimental last. That's one of the things that Marie Kondo talks about. Like when you're going through a whole room and there's all kinds of clutter, I would have like a box or a folder for sentimental, like photos, things like that. Get a whole like tote or box that you just label sentimental and come back to that at the end.
Yeah.
That's a great thing to do when you're retired, trying to go through the photos and sentimental things first or before everything else is done, it's really challenging. Like, get the mental muscles, the decluttering muscles strong, create the space, and then go through the photos and the albums and the journals and things like that. I wouldn't recommend starting there.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. You could never get back to moving anything.
Yes, right?
So here's a question. In
Yeah.
terms of clutter, all of us have gifts that some relative gave us that we absolutely cannot stand, but we have them because when that relative comes over, they might be looking to see it, or you want to acknowledge that, yes, I care. Is there a way to take that thing that we don't want and put it into the donation bag and deal with the guilt so that when Aunt Susie comes by looking for that gold rose that she gave me as a sweet 16 party thing, she doesn't feel like she's being kicked out to the curb?
Right. That is such a good question. That's a huge part of what I come across working with people. And I just did a whole post in my Facebook group. I have a TidyWild Facebook group that it's the question of gifts. Do we want to actually step away from being a gift giving society, because people go and buy all the things that they need, but that doesn't, that thinking about moving forward, what do I want to do with gifts in my life? And what do I want to tell people that I want as gifts? Like, if you don't want to add to the clutter, you can be like figuring that out within ourselves and then communicating that, especially here before Christmas. Can we actually, I just want experiences, or like, hey, I was thinking I'd take the whole family out to dinner instead of giving everybody gifts, or whatever, thinking through that. But dealing with the bouquet from Aunt Susie from when you were 16, that is part of the taking time to feel through the emotions. You can take the picture. I recommend creating folders on your phone for photos, which is, that's a whole nother organizing piece. But unless you really want it, like if you really want it, you can like set it in the corner. But if you're really not ever going to look at it and it kind of makes you feel like, yeah. Like I'll tell you one last story. So I had a drum that somebody made me, like shot the deer, skinned the deer, turned that into the drum, like cut the wood, like made it all by hand, gave it to me, and I carried it around for years. I don't do drumming. I'm not really exactly sure why they gave it to me, but it was like, I don't know, he made it. It's so nice. And I took it to the secondhand store 3 different times and brought it home each time because I felt so guilty. And I finally looked at it. I took it out of my car and I looked at it like it was alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, thank you so much. You are so beautiful. This was all in my head. I wasn't saying it out loud. Some people do. I do that with people too sometimes. Like, thank you. You're so beautiful. And I want you to go to somebody who's going to appreciate you. And I appreciate the person who gave this to me. And I put it in my car and I drove it to the secondhand store. And the person helping me take things out of my car, that was the last thing I took out. And he was like, this is so beautiful. I collect drums and I play drums. And he was a Native American man who had a very deep appreciation of the work that had gone into this. And I was like, oh, can I give it to you? How do we get? And he said, well, I have to like go through the process. And I was like, I will help you because I wanted this to go to somebody who appreciates it. So figuring, like, saying thank you and letting it go, because we don't need to surround ourselves with guilt.
But then the second part of the question, Spring, is what do I tell Aunt Susie when she's looking for it?
Mm-hmm. That's my mom and I dealt with this a lot because my mom let go of a lot of things, as she was planning for the end of her life. And what I really recommend is being honest with her.
Okay.
And saying, I appreciated this gift so much, and I'm making space in my life for the things that I want. And there's not for the things that I want. I'm making space in my life. And I so appreciated it, and I live in a smaller space now, and I'm letting it go with the love that you gave to me, hoping it can go to somebody who can appreciate
Oh, I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
it.
I'm going to go get rid of a bunch of stuff now.
Yes. Yeah. People are not trying to give you the gift of guilt. Now,
No.
whenever I give something, I write in the card or I tell the person, I want you to know you don't have to hang on to this just because I gave it to you. Like, give people permission
Yeah.
to either not have to give the gift in the first place or to let it go. And I have a donation station in my laundry room that's a box where sometimes people give me something. I'm like, thank you so much. And I go and put it right in my donation box. We
I've
do
done that.
not have to keep things because of guilt.
Yeah.
It's a weight.
I'm going to take a moment to, as I used to say when we lived in Kentucky, brag on my nieces and nephews. So, my one niece was the first grandchild on both sides of the family. And when she was 3 years old, she literally cried because she had too many Christmas presents to open. And I
Oh,
was like, this is not a good thing, and it was wonderful that, like, her grandparents and her aunts and her uncles were like, wanting to spoil her, but I'm like looking at it from a different point of view. And I was like, okay, so I started getting all my nieces and nephews animals from the World Wildlife Fund. So they would adopt them. They would have this certificate and they were understanding that they were making a donation.
yes.
And then as the one who cried when she was 3 because she had too much to open got to be about 14, she's like, Aunt Marie, we have saved enough animals. Can we give to a different charity? I was like, yes. And so I taught them all to go to Star Guide, like look at a charity that they like, go to Star Guide, make sure it's a legitimate charity. And they all now on Thanksgiving send me an email saying, here's the charity I want to donate to this year. And so half of their Christmas present goes to a charity, and then the other half is gift card to a movie.
I
Yeah.
love that so much.
It's wonderful. And it's great to see like the investigations they do. And we've given things to like, kids who have no soccer balls in Africa, different charities like St. Jude's is always a big one, because there's always those kids that need extra help. One of my nieces wanted to donate to a place that wasn't on Star Guide, but it was trying to stop Japanese dolphin killing. And I was like, okay, we'll make an exception on that one. But like just the
Wow.
creativity they came up with, and so there wasn't the clutter, there was an experience, and they got,
Yes.
and they all like I'm not saying that I taught them all this stuff about donating because they have wonderful parents, but they're all really cool kids who think about others, especially around the holiday time, and I'm just so proud of them.
Oh, that is definitely worth bragging on your nieces and nephews. That's a huge life lesson. And I mean, think about how many birthdays and Christmases and holidays throughout the year there are, and how many we live in a gift giving culture.
Yeah.
And it's become a huge burden. A huge burden. I mean, there's like a tradition of when you visit somebody in their home, you take them a gift.
Yeah.
When it's Valentine's Day, when it's Easter, when it's your birthday, when it's like all of these things, all those add up over years. And if that stuff isn't moving out, then it's just piling up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, so exciting.
So can you describe for us what you've seen on the faces of clients you've worked with when they get to that end phase where they feel like they've gotten their organization, they've gotten rid of the stuff, like describe how that is.
Oh, I've had people say it feels like a house was lifted off of their shoulders. And it looks like that. I mean, people look visibly lighter. Oh, it is the most beautiful thing to see, like when they look around and realize just how different it feels and how different their habits are. It really is a visible lightening. And a lot of times people lose weight, they feel happier in their relationships, and they just feel better in their lives. But the weight is the biggest one, where they say, I just feel so much lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about the number of pounds that they've lost, right? That makes sense.
Exactly. And you don't have stuff yelling at you all day.
Yeah. 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 And you're talking earlier about like having stuff build up and clutter and not doing all. When I was like a public defender and I was working like 60 hours a week, there was a big pile of things that needed to be filed from my bills that just kept getting higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. And I used to like walk in the room and just shudder.
Yes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then when I was no longer a public defender and I went through them and I shredded some because they were so old I didn't need them anymore. Um, and I filed the rest, all of a sudden I felt light. I was like,
Yes, and it's like that in the whole house, and, like, you don't wanna go into retirement with that heaviness,
yeah.
and the more we can lighten the load before we retire, the more enjoyment we can have when that day finally comes.
Yeah, indeed.
Mhm.
Indeed. Oh, Spring, this has been so amazing and so
Ah,
wonderful.
I am
Um,
so grateful for this opportunity, thank you.
and so we will put, we'll get your website and your Facebook page in the comments so people can reach out to you directly.
Yes,
And they can ask you questions and they can work with you if they want. I'm like, like people like you are so necessary.
thank
And
you, as are you.
thanks. And we appreciate whatever tools you're going to be able to share with us. I know we don't want you to give up any of your big secrets because you are doing this for a living, but whatever you can give to us, we will take. Um,
Okay,
for
fabulous.
sure.
And I do have a free, people can, as of right now, I'm starting to get busier. I just came back to work full time. But I have free coaching calls available. So people can call and just get a sense of like, what is this? You can unload your challenges and see if I can help. And no matter what, whether somebody continues to work with me or not, they go away with something that can help them moving forward in their lives. So please, anybody who's struggling, which so many of us are,
Yeah.
like just connect with me. Get on my newsletter. Like on the bottom of my website, you can get right onto my newsletter. I send out tips a couple times a month. Oh, and I wanted to say, Devin Carroll is a financial advisor, financial planner who has a YouTube video called How to Get Organized for Retirement.
Oh, cool.
It was just a really interesting, he has the financial piece that I was talking about. He goes a little bit more in depth with those. So yeah, just get a coaching call, check in with me, get on my newsletter, and just begin.
Yeah, it's a great newsletter. I've learned a lot
Thank
from it.
you.
So
Thank
yes, yes.
you.
It's it's like you get some newsletters and you're like, oh, there's another newsletter. And springs come in and you're like, what am I gonna learn this time?
Yay! I really dig deep in my heart. I'm a writer by an artist by heart. So it comes straight from my soul.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Spring. We
Thank
appreciate your
you.
time. And I'm hoping some folks are going to take advantage of that call and more importantly, even work with you to get themselves organized and ready for retirement. And we'll talk to you again.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye-bye. And stream, it doesn't want to end. It wants to keep going.
bye.